Your soulmate is about to do something unexpected. Don't look away. My beloved child, listen carefully, don't look away, because something unexpected may be unfolding behind the silence you have been experiencing. The person you have been thinking about, the person whose name still creates a strange feeling in your heart, may be closer to making a decision than you realize. You may think they have forgotten you. You may think they have moved on. You may even believe their silence means they no longer care. But there is something you cannot see yet. A decision is forming behind the scenes, and when your soulmate finally acts on it, you may realize that their silence was never the entire story. Something is changing. Not necessarily in a loud or dramatic way. Sometimes the biggest changes begin quietly, inside a person's heart. Your soulmate may have been watching, thinking, remembering, and questioning everything they once believed about this connection. They may have tried to convince themselves that distance was the answer. They may have told themselves that they needed to move forward. They may have listened to friends, family, or circumstances that encouraged them to forget the past. But there comes a moment when a person becomes tired of pretending they don't feel what they feel. And that moment may be approaching. Maybe you noticed their behavior becoming different. Perhaps they suddenly became quieter. Maybe they stopped reacting to your posts. Maybe they disappeared without explanation. Perhaps they seemed unusually calm, almost as if they had completely detached from the situation. But sometimes silence isn't detachment. Sometimes silence is preparation. A person who is preparing to make an important decision may become quieter because they are finally thinking before they act. Your soulmate may be asking themselves questions they have avoided for a long time. What do I actually want? Why am I still thinking about this person? Why does their absence still affect me? Why do I feel like something is unfinished? Should I reach out? What if they don't want me anymore? Those questions can become impossible to ignore. Maybe they have already typed your name into their phone. Maybe they have opened your conversation and stared at the screen without knowing what to say. Maybe they wrote a message and deleted it. Maybe they started typing, "Can we talk?" and then stopped because suddenly the reality of contacting you became too overwhelming. They may have thought about saying something simple. "Hey." But even that tiny word carried too much emotion. Because they know that once they open that door, they cannot control what happens next. Maybe they fear rejection. Maybe they fear that you have moved on. Maybe they fear that you remember the way they treated you. Maybe they fear you will ask questions they aren't ready to answer. And yet, despite all those fears, something inside them keeps pulling them toward the truth. You. That doesn't mean you should assume every silence is secretly romantic. It doesn't mean you should wait endlessly for someone who refuses to communicate. Their actions still matter. Your boundaries still matter. Your peace still matters. But if this person genuinely wants to return to your life, they will eventually have to move beyond thoughts and turn those thoughts into respectful action. And perhaps that is exactly what is about to happen. Maybe the unexpected thing isn't simply a message. Maybe it is an apology. Maybe it is a confession. Maybe it is an invitation to talk. Maybe it is an explanation for something that happened between you. Maybe it is your soulmate finally admitting something they have hidden for a long time. Imagine receiving a message from them when you least expect it. Your phone lights up. You see their name. For a moment, you don't move. Your heart recognizes the name before your mind can process it. You open the message. And there are only a few words. I need to tell you something. You stare at the screen. Your mind begins racing. What happened? Why now? Is something wrong? You type. What is it? The reply doesn't come immediately. 5 minutes pass. 10 minutes. Then finally. I should have told you this a long time ago. Your heart sinks. Because suddenly you realize this isn't a casual conversation. There is something they have been carrying. Something they haven't known how to express. Maybe your soulmate has been hiding regret. Not necessarily regret that they ever met you. Regret that they didn't handle the connection differently. Maybe they remember moments when they could have spoken but stayed silent. Moments when they could have chosen honesty but chose avoidance. Moments when they could have reassured you but allowed uncertainty to grow. Maybe they now understand that some of the distance between you wasn't created by a lack of love. It was created by fear. Fear can make people do strange things. It can make someone leave when they want to stay. It can make someone act cold when they are deeply emotional. It can make someone reject the very thing they secretly desire. It can make someone convince themselves that walking away is easier than becoming vulnerable. Maybe your soulmate has finally realized that. Maybe they thought they were protecting themselves. But they were actually protecting themselves from the possibility of being loved deeply. And now they are beginning to understand what that cost them. Perhaps they see you differently now. Not because you changed to impress them. Because you stopped chasing. You stopped explaining. You stopped trying to convince them. You became quieter. You focused on yourself. You started living again. And something about that changed the dynamic. Maybe your soulmate expected you to remain available forever. Then they noticed you weren't. Maybe they expected another message. There wasn't one. Maybe they expected you to ask why they were distant. You didn't. Maybe they thought you would continue waiting. Instead, you started moving forward. That can force a person to confront reality. They suddenly realize, I could actually lose them. And sometimes that realization creates urgency. But be careful. Urgency alone isn't proof of love. Someone returning because they are afraid of losing access to you is different from someone returning because they genuinely understand your value and are ready to build something healthy. That's why you should watch what happens next. Don't only listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Maybe your soulmate says, I miss you. That's emotional. But do they explain what happened? Do they take responsibility? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they make consistent effort? Do they communicate when things become difficult? Those are the things that matter. Maybe this unexpected move is actually a sign that they are becoming more mature. Perhaps they have realized that they cannot keep you trapped in uncertainty. Maybe they finally decide to tell you the truth. They may say, I was scared. You ask, of what? They answer, of how much I cared. That sentence could explain more than months of silence. Because sometimes the person who appears least affected is the person who has been fighting the hardest battle internally. Maybe they didn't know how to process their feelings. Maybe they weren't prepared for the depth of the connection. Maybe they had never experienced someone who made them question their plans. And perhaps you challenged them simply by being yourself. You made them think about the kind of relationship they actually wanted. You made them think about commitment. You made them think about emotional honesty. You made them think about the future. And that can be frightening. Especially for someone who has spent years controlling everything. Maybe they believed they could control their feelings. Then you entered their life. And suddenly they couldn't. Perhaps that's why their behavior became inconsistent. One day they were close. The next day they pulled away. One moment they were affectionate. The next they became distant. That inconsistency may have hurt you deeply. But now they may finally understand what it did to you. Maybe they replay those moments. Maybe they wish they had handled them differently. Maybe they wish they had been brave enough to say, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I don't want to lose you. Instead, they may have said nothing. And silence created a wound. Perhaps they now want to repair it. Maybe that's the unexpected move. Not a dramatic proposal. Not some impossible miracle. A conversation. An honest conversation. A conversation where they finally stop pretending. Maybe they say, I don't expect you to trust me immediately. You remain silent. They continue. I know I have things to prove. That sentence matters. Because someone who understands that trust must be earned is thinking differently. Maybe they tell you, I don't want to rush you. Another important sign. Because genuine reconciliation doesn't require pressure. It requires patience. Maybe they say, I just want the chance to talk. And perhaps you agree. Not because you are desperate. Because you are curious. You want answers. You want clarity. You want to know whether this person has actually changed or whether they are simply lonely. So you meet. Maybe somewhere quiet. There is no dramatic music. No perfect words. Just two people sitting across from each other with a history neither can erase. Your soulmate looks nervous. You ask, why did you really leave? They take a deep breath. I was afraid. You ask, why didn't you tell me? Because I thought I could handle it myself. And could you? They shake their head. No. Maybe they finally admit. I thought if I walked away, I would stop feeling everything. You ask. Did it work? They look at you. No. Silence. Then they say. It made me realize how much I had been avoiding. That conversation could become the beginning of clarity. But remember something important. You don't owe anyone immediate forgiveness. You don't owe anyone another chance. You don't owe anyone access to your heart simply because they finally became honest. Listen. Observe. Take your time. Let their behavior reveal whether their words are real. Maybe they are willing to rebuild slowly. Maybe they become more consistent. Maybe they communicate instead of disappearing. Maybe they stop making excuses. Maybe they begin asking what you need instead of only talking about what they want. That is growth. And if they aren't willing to do those things, then you have your answer. You don't need to chase a mystery forever. Reality will eventually reveal itself. Perhaps your soulmate's unexpected action will surprise you because you expected something dramatic. Instead, they do something simple. They show up. They apologize. They listen. They admit they were wrong. They don't defend themselves. They don't blame you. They simply say, "I understand why you were hurt." That can be more powerful than any grand declaration. Maybe they tell you, "I don't want to repeat the same cycle." And perhaps you answer, "Then don't." They nod. "I won't." Now the real work begins. Because love isn't proven by one emotional conversation. It is proven by what happens afterward. Maybe the next morning they still communicate. A week later, they still communicate. A month later, they are still consistent. When something difficult happens, they don't disappear. When they feel afraid, they talk. When you need reassurance, they listen. When you set a boundary, they respect it. That's how you know something has changed. Maybe your soulmate has been preparing for that kind of change quietly. Maybe they have been reflecting on their mistakes. Maybe they have been learning to communicate. Maybe they have been realizing that a relationship cannot survive on chemistry alone. It requires maturity. It requires patience. It requires emotional responsibility. And perhaps they are finally becoming ready. Maybe that is why this moment feels different. Because you are different too. You no longer want the old version of the relationship. You want something healthier. Something peaceful. Something where you don't have to constantly wonder where you stand. Maybe your soulmate senses that. Maybe they know that if they approach you, they cannot bring the same behavior with them. They have to bring clarity. They have to bring honesty. They have to bring action. And perhaps that realization is what has been delaying their move. They aren't just deciding whether to contact you. They are deciding whether they are ready to become the person who can maintain the relationship they once wanted. That's a much bigger decision. Maybe tonight they are sitting alone thinking about you. Maybe they look at an old photo. Maybe they remember a conversation. Maybe they hear a song. Maybe they pass a place connected to you. And suddenly they realize, I still care. But this time, instead of running from that feeling, they sit with it. They allow themselves to feel. They ask what the feeling is teaching them. Maybe it teaches them that they miss you. Maybe it teaches them that they regret hurting you. Maybe it teaches them that they are ready to apologize. Maybe it teaches them that they need closure. Whatever the answer is, they are finally facing it. And perhaps that is the unexpected move. They are facing themselves. Because before someone can return to you in a healthy way, they have to become honest with themselves. Maybe they finally understand. I can't expect someone to trust me if I keep disappearing. I can't expect someone to feel safe if I keep changing my mind. I can't ask someone to wait forever while I remain uncertain. That realization can transform a person. Maybe your soulmate is beginning to understand that love isn't simply about finding someone. It's about becoming someone capable of loving well. Maybe they are working on themselves now. Maybe they are becoming more stable, more communicative, more intentional. And perhaps one day, when they reach out, you'll notice something immediately. The message won't feel chaotic. It won't feel desperate. It won't demand anything. It will simply say, "I've been thinking about you. If you're comfortable, I'd like to talk." That is different. There is respect in that message. There is space. There is choice. And maybe you respond. Okay. One word. But that one word opens a door. Not necessarily to a relationship. To a conversation. And sometimes a conversation is where healing begins. Maybe they tell you everything. Maybe you finally understand what was happening behind their silence. Maybe you realize you were blaming yourself for something that wasn't entirely your fault. Maybe they realize how deeply their actions affected you. And maybe both of you finally say the words you should have said much earlier. "I'm sorry. I understand. I was afraid. I was hurt. I still care. I need time. I respect that." Those words may not fix everything. But they can create a foundation. And perhaps that is what your soulmate is unexpectedly moving toward. Not simply getting you back. Getting the relationship right. That's a different intention. Maybe they aren't trying to recreate the past. They are trying to build something better. Maybe you are too. And if you both choose that path, go slowly. Let trust return naturally. Let consistency speak. Let time reveal character. Don't rush because of emotion. Don't allow nostalgia to erase the lessons you learned. The past can be honored without being repeated. Maybe your soulmate will eventually say, "I don't want to go back to who we were." You ask, "Then what do you want?" They answer, "I want us to become something healthier than we were." That is the kind of statement worth paying attention to. Because real love doesn't always say, "Let's go back." Sometimes it says, "Let's grow forward." Maybe that is the unexpected move waiting ahead. A forward step. A mature step. A truthful step. And perhaps you are being prepared for it too. Maybe you have spent so much time expecting them to make the next move that you forgot you have a choice. You don't have to automatically say yes. You don't have to automatically say no. You can listen. You can observe. You can decide. Your heart belongs to you. Your future belongs to you. And no spiritual message should ever take that freedom away from you. If your soulmate truly wants a future with you, they will respect your freedom to choose. They won't manipulate you. They won't pressure you. They won't make you feel guilty for needing time. They will understand. Because love without freedom becomes control. And love with freedom becomes choice. Maybe that is the lesson your soulmate is learning. Maybe that's why they are about to do something unexpected. Perhaps they are finally choosing honesty over fear. Perhaps they are finally choosing communication over silence. Perhaps they are finally choosing responsibility over excuses. And perhaps when they do, you will see them differently. Not because they suddenly became perfect, but because they finally became accountable. Maybe you will hear them say, "I can't change the past, but I can change what I do next." That sentence could become the turning point. Because everyone makes mistakes. What matters is whether they learn from them. Maybe they learned. Maybe you learned too. And perhaps the future is waiting to see what both of you do with those lessons. So don't look away. Not because you should obsess over what your soulmate is doing, but because your own life is changing too. Something unexpected may be happening inside you. You may be becoming less anxious. You may be becoming more confident. You may be realizing that you don't need anyone to validate your worth. You may be discovering that love feels different when you are no longer afraid of losing it. And that transformation may be exactly what prepares you for whatever comes next. Maybe your soulmate returns. Maybe you reconnect. Maybe you simply receive the closure you needed. Maybe someone completely unexpected enters your life. You cannot know yet. And you don't have to. Your responsibility is not to predict the future. Your responsibility is to live wisely in the present. If your soulmate makes a move, evaluate it. If they apologize, listen. If they ask for another chance, consider whether their actions support their words. If they disappear again, believe the pattern. Don't ignore reality because you want a particular outcome. Love should make you more grounded, not less. Maybe your soulmate is learning that now. Maybe they finally understand that their next move has consequences. If they reach out, they need to be prepared for your questions. If they apologize, they need to be prepared to hear how their actions affected you. If they ask for another chance, they need to be prepared to earn trust. Maybe that is why they have been silent. They know this isn't going to be a simple, "I miss you" conversation. They know they have to face the truth. And perhaps they are finally ready. Imagine the moment they finally look at you and say, "I didn't expect to miss you this much." You smile softly. "Neither did I." They ask, "Do you think we could ever try again?" You don't answer immediately. You look at them. Then you say, "Maybe. But not the way we did before." They nod. "I understand. What would be different?" They take a breath. "Everything we were afraid to talk about." And maybe that's where your story changes. Not because fate forced it. Because both of you chose growth. Maybe you begin again slowly. No rushing. No pretending. No dramatic promises. Just small moments. A conversation. A laugh. A walk. A shared memory. An apology. A boundary. A promise kept. Then another. Then another. And eventually, you may realize that trust is returning. Not because someone told you to trust. Because they gave you reasons. That is the kind of unexpected transformation that matters. Maybe the biggest surprise isn't that your soulmate comes back. Maybe the biggest surprise is that they come back differently. Maybe they finally understand your value. Maybe they finally understand their own responsibility. Maybe they finally understand that love requires courage. And perhaps you finally understand something too. You don't need to be chosen at any cost. You need to be chosen correctly. You need a person who can stand beside you when life becomes difficult. A person who can communicate. A person who can apologize. A person who can listen. A person who can respect your boundaries. A person who can build. If your soulmate becomes that person, then perhaps the unexpected move will become the beginning of something beautiful. But if they don't, you will still be okay. Because your worth doesn't depend on their decision. Your future doesn't depend on their return. Your life is bigger than one connection. And perhaps that's what makes you powerful now. You can love without chasing. You can hope without waiting. You can care without losing yourself. You can forgive without forgetting your boundaries. You can be open without being naive. That is emotional strength. And maybe your soulmate is about to discover that version of you. The version who no longer begs. The version who no longer runs after silence. The version who says, "If you want me in your life, show me." Not with manipulation. With consistency. Not with promises. With action. Not with temporary emotion. With commitment. Maybe that is what makes them pause. Maybe that is what makes them finally understand. Maybe they thought they could return whenever they wanted. Now they realize they have to earn the opportunity. And perhaps that realization motivates them to become better. Maybe they finally decide to stop hiding. Maybe they finally tell someone close to them how they feel. Maybe they finally admit, "I never really stopped caring." Maybe that confession changes their life. Maybe it changes yours. But whatever happens, don't forget yourself while watching the story unfold. Your soulmate may be about to do something unexpected. But so are you. You are about to become more courageous. More peaceful. More selective. More aware of your worth. You are about to stop confusing uncertainty with destiny. You are about to stop chasing signs and start looking at actions. You are about to understand that a real connection doesn't require constant fear. And perhaps that is the greatest surprise waiting for you. You may discover that the love you were waiting for begins with loving yourself enough to stop accepting less than you deserve. So when the unexpected happens, don't panic. Don't rush. Don't assume. Pause. Listen. Observe. Ask questions. Protect your peace. And if the moment is right, speak your truth too. Tell them what hurt. Tell them what you need. Tell them what you will and will not accept. Give them the opportunity to show you who they have become. Then make your choice. Because this isn't only their story. It's yours too. Maybe they are about to reach out. Maybe they are about to confess something. Maybe they are about to apologize. Maybe they are about to make a decision that changes the direction of the relationship. Whatever it is, let it reveal itself naturally. You don't have to chase the surprise. You simply have to be ready for the truth. And perhaps the truth will be better than the fantasy. Maybe you will discover that they really have changed. Maybe you'll discover that you have changed. Maybe you will find a path forward. Maybe you will finally find closure. Either way, you will have clarity. And clarity is freedom. So don't look away from your own life while waiting to see what your soulmate does. Keep growing. Keep working. Keep laughing. Keep praying if faith is important to you. Keep building your future. Let your life continue. Because if your soulmate truly wants to be part of that future, they will have to step into it with you, not ask you to stop living until they decide. Maybe one day they will arrive with a simple message. I am ready to talk. And you will know exactly what to do. You will breathe. You will stay calm. You will remember everything you've learned. And you will ask, are you ready to be honest? They will answer, yes. Are you ready to take responsibility? Yes. Are you ready to move slowly? Yes. Are you ready to let me choose too? They look at you. Yes. And maybe, finally, there is peace. Not because everything is guaranteed. Because everything is honest. Maybe the unexpected thing your soulmate is about to do is not simply come closer. Maybe they are about to stop running. Maybe they are about to face what they feel. Maybe they are about to make a mature choice. And perhaps you are about to make one too. You are about to choose peace over obsession. Clarity over confusion. Self-respect over desperation. Healthy love over fantasy. And if those choices bring you together again, let it be because both of you are ready. Not because either of you is afraid to be alone. Not because someone is pressuring you. Not because you are trying to prove something. Because you genuinely choose each other. That kind of love is worth building. That kind of love can survive difficult conversations. That kind of love doesn't need constant signs. It shows itself through everyday actions. And perhaps that is what your soulmate is finally beginning to understand. So, my beloved child, don't look away. But don't stare at the door waiting for someone to knock either. Live. Grow. Heal. Become. Let the future come toward you. If your soulmate is about to make an unexpected move, let them make it. If they reach out, let them speak. If they apologize, listen carefully. If they ask for another chance, look for evidence of change. And if they don't come, keep moving. Because either way, you are moving towards something greater. Maybe this person will be part of that future. Maybe they won't. But the person you are becoming will still be waiting for you. And that person deserves your attention too. Perhaps the greatest unexpected moment won't be when your soulmate appears. It will be when you realize you are no longer afraid of whether they do. Because you finally know. I will be okay either way. That is freedom. That is healing. That is strength. And from that place, love becomes a choice instead of a need. Maybe your soulmate is learning the same lesson. Maybe that's why they are preparing to do something unexpected. Maybe they are finally ready to choose truth over fear. And if their path leads them back to you, let them walk. Let them explain. Let them prove. Let them show you. And if you decide to open the door, open it slowly. No rushing. No pretending. No forgetting the lessons. Just two people standing honestly in front of each other, asking whether there is still something worth building. And perhaps the answer will surprise you. Maybe the connection wasn't destroyed. Maybe it was waiting for both of you to become wiser. Maybe the old chapter had to close before a new one could begin. And perhaps, one day, you will look back at this period and realize that the silence wasn't the end. It was preparation. Preparation for clarity. Preparation for growth. Preparation for a decision. Preparation for a love that doesn't require you to lose yourself. So whatever your soulmate does next, remember this. You don't have to chase. You don't have to beg. You don't have to decode. You don't have to panic. You simply have to watch. Let their actions speak. Let time reveal the truth. And let your own heart remain protected. Because when someone truly wants to be in your life, you won't have to force them to stay. They will show up. They will communicate. They will make an effort. They will respect you. They will choose you freely. And if your soulmate is truly ready, their next move won't leave you more confused. It will bring clarity. It won't create more fear. It will create peace. It won't demand that you abandon yourself. It will invite you to build something together. So don't look away. Not because you need to obsess over what happens next. But because you are about to witness something important, not necessarily a miracle outside of you, but a transformation within you. You are learning how to love without losing yourself. You are learning how to wait without putting your life on hold. You are learning how to forgive without ignoring reality. You are learning how to hope without surrendering your power. And perhaps when your soulmate finally makes that unexpected move, you will be ready. Not desperate. Not afraid. Ready. Ready to listen. Ready to decide. Ready to walk away if necessary. Ready to stay if it is healthy. Ready to choose what brings peace. And perhaps that is the ending you were always meant to have. Not an ending where someone finally saves you. An ending where you realize you were never waiting to be saved. You were waiting to remember your own strength. Maybe your soulmate comes back. Maybe they don't. But you will keep becoming. And if they do come back, they won't meet the person they left behind. They will meet someone stronger. Someone wiser. Someone who knows their worth. Someone who can look them in the eyes and say, I care about you. But if we're going to do this, we're going to do it honestly. And perhaps your soulmate will smile. That's exactly what I want. Then maybe you take that first step. Together. Slowly. Carefully. Honestly. And perhaps, this time, the story doesn't begin with fear. It begins with choice. It begins with truth. It begins with two people who finally understand that love isn't about who chases whom. It's about who is willing to show up. And maybe that is what your soulmate is about to do. So don't look away. Stay present. Stay grounded. Stay open to truth. Because whatever happens next, you are not powerless. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not waiting for someone else to determine your future. Your future is still yours. And if your soulmate is meant to walk into it, they will have to walk beside you, not ahead of you, not behind you, but beside you. That is where real love belongs. And when that moment comes, you won't need to wonder whether they are serious. Their actions will tell you. Their consistency will tell you. Their respect will tell you. Their courage will tell you. And perhaps, after all the silence, all the confusion, and all the unanswered questions, the unexpected thing your soulmate does will be the simplest thing of all. They finally tell you the truth. And this time, they stay long enough to prove it.